Is a radical position being offered by our friends on the other side of the aisle. They claim that we should support ensuring that people who are an imminent danger to themselves and others, such that they might commit mass murder, have a constitutional right to access a firearm, and to deny them that right would, quote, trample on an individual's due process and Second Amendment rights. You know who didn't have due process? You know who didn't have their constitutional right to life respected? The kids at Parkland and Sandy Hook and Uvalde and Buffalo, and the list goes on and on. So spare me the bullshit about constitutional rights.
Would the gentleman yield?
No, I will not yield, and I'm not going to yield for my entire 5 minutes, so don't ask again. So first of all, these risk protection orders work. They ensure that people who are a grave danger to themselves or others don't have access to a firearm. This is an idea that, by the way, the former Republican president said, and I quote, "We must make sure that those judged to pose a grave risk to public safety do not have access to firearms. And that if they do so, those firearms can be taken through rapid due process." That's why I've called for red flag laws, also known as extreme risk protection orders. The former Republican president. The bill introduced by Senator Lindsey Graham. So this view of our Republican colleagues on this committee, that no matter how dangerous you are, no matter how much you've exhibited an intention to kill others or kill yourself, you should have unfettered access to a firearm because the Second Amendment guarantees it. That is nonsense. Risk protection orders are modeled after domestic violence statutes. They have due process. They have notice requirements, a right to a hearing, a right to contest the seizure of the firearm. That's the due process which exists. It's available in all the states that have these laws, which is why they've been upheld by courts when challenged. So this idea that there's no due process is baloney. There is due process. There is a process. It's been found to be constitutionally acceptable. And it's not a permanent removal from a firearm, as Mr. Jordan suggested. It's a temporary removal so that person doesn't slaughter and kill others or kill him or herself. We know they work, and I ask unanimous consent to introduce into record extreme risk laws save lives.
Without objection.
That details the many examples where individuals where the lives of individuals and others have been saved because of this temporary intervention in the face of evidence of harm. It is shocking that our Republican colleagues have been clamoring about due process of would-be killers, and yet they've never mentioned the deprivation of due process of victims of gun violence, the deprivation of life that families experience when people are slaughtered with a gun by someone who's seriously mentally ill and shouldn't have a firearm. Haven't heard one word about their constitutional right to remain alive in this country. And this notion that you can't take away a gun from a seriously dangerous person, even temporarily, even after a judge has a hearing and determines that that person's a danger, is shocking. It's radical. It's even a departure from most Republicans. And by the way, 90% of the American people support this legislation, 75% of gun owners. And the former president, who was cheered at the NRA convention, cheered as a big cheer, he supports it. That was his statement I read. And the notion of someone could make up a false claim, people are required to testify under oath. There are penalties if you lie, and most states have protections that make it illegal to file a false petition. That's built into the statute. But what this really is gun manufacturers and gun salesmen and people who are here to say no matter what, everyone in America should have access to as many guns as they want, no matter what their condition is, no matter what they intend to do with it, no matter who they slaughter, because gun sales promote revenue. And the gun manufacturers don't want any limitations on it. And it's disgraceful to hear people on this committee who are charged with taking an oath and protecting the lives of the constituents they represent to argue that someone who is seriously mentally ill, who's presented that they are a danger to themselves or others if they have access to a firearm, that they have a constitutional right and it will trample on their rights if that seriously ill and dangerous person can't buy a gun and slaughter innocent people. That is horrifying. It's radical. They're wrong. And we should overwhelmingly reject this hideous, hideous amendment. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purposes, Mr. Massey?